Soul winning is winning the 5 parts of a person's soul. It's not winning the tracks. Their emotions, their consciousness, their conscience, their volition. And I may have doubled one of them up. Mind, thank you.
The will and the volition.
Yeah, the same. Yeah. But that idea that God is like winning David's soul for time, like continually being faithful, and even when he messes up, he's never, there's always another chapter, and it's like he continues, and the promises he makes to never fail, and that idea that we see that. And a statement like this shows that David needs to be won. That we're won, but he keeps winning us.
Oh, you mean W-O-N, not O-N-E.
Right, yes. Yeah, like that. Like there's God wins us, but then there's progressive sanctification. He's winning over and over. Like he reconvinces it. Like we're like sheep that go astray, easily go astray, and but he comes after us and brings us back. He shows us that it's really not about our performance, it's about him. He's decided to love us and he's going to love us, and that's it.
That's huge, Pastor. That is very big, because it's part of the cornerstone of confidence in the salvation of God versus that it's a work. So I could concede to the fact that I'm saved by God, that it's up to me now to keep my salvation rather than be converted repeatedly, constantly under conversion. I see. So this is important. So continue, like so winning, W-I-N-N-I-N-G.
And we're like this idea that stuck with me from the convention with Pastor Nazi was go again, try again. Like Dr. Stevens, being a pastor, forming a church in a small rural area, going and knocking on people's doors again, even though they told him to get lost, like
42 times.
Again and again. And he's like, I love you, and I'm just going to come in and just check in on who you are. Until the day when something happens and they decide that they want him to come in and they need somebody to talk to. And like what was he doing? He was winning them. Like he was like saying, I get it, but I'm not changing what I'm doing. Like I'm not changing. Like I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to keep being consistent. And I think with people like that, people need, they need to be won. they really do. I need to be won. And there are times when I'm like, God, I need you to win me back. Like I need you to win me again. Like I need that. And people need like at the moment, I see a bunch of people who are suddenly not happy with me, or the ministry I'm ordained under or whatever, and they're saying things and they're doing things, and I'm just being very quiet because I'm just planning that I'm going to win them. I'm not going to change, and I'm just going to keep loving people. If that doesn't win them, then nothing is going to win them, but I'm not going to change what I do like, and I'm not going to write them off. Cancel culture says, oh, they did these great things, but they did this. Oh, well, they did this, so we're going to throw it all out. We're going to cut it all off. We're going to rip the picture in. We're just going to keep my side, and they are gone. And even though at one point they were my husband, and I loved them, and they were the best thing in the world, now they're my ex, and I hate them, and it's, I wish they would die. And it's just like, this is what cancel culture does. It just like says,
So where-
this is the reason why this person needs to be excluded. And Christianity says, the gospel says, this is the reason why nobody should be excluded. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him. So the greatest testimony I can say is, when you're excluding me, I'm not going to exclude you. And I know that your soul just needs to be won. I'm not going to compromise to do that. But I'm confident in the one who wins my soul can win your soul.
Well, there's a backdrop, and Pastor Bill talks about this quite often, and that is, like in marriage, marriage is a covenant relationship. But my wife, I need to tell her I love her, even though I had said it, at the altar. But the undergirding reality that prevents the cancel culture, is that I have a covenant, and it includes God. It includes God.
When I stop winning my wife's soul, she's going to shrivel up. And she's going to need a provision from somewhere.
Is it okay to sit here? Did you want this? You're filming?
Yeah, but you're behind the camera.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll sit over here.
if you want to sit in front of the camera, all I have to do is turn it around.
Daniel. Reggie. What's your name? Reggie. Reggie, nice to
I'm
meet you.
Christy.
Nice to meet you.
This is actually Pastor
No traffic.
introducing himself that way. Wonderful
Great.
Pastor Reggie.
So, that's what I meant, so there's parts, that are closed off. That's great.
No, I think I'm sticking with you.
I was surprised it only took us like 24 minutes or something. A lot closer than I thought.
Hey,
We're sorry we're late.
we're never far away.
Yeah, we were getting ready to send out the dogs.
Might be helpful.
But the verse that comes to mind when you're talking about this is James 1:12. Blessed is a man who perseveres under trial. When it says, but once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. So it really comes down to love, doesn't it? It's about manifesting that love.
That crown is the trophy of having won. If people are going to, and I want to go back to this cancel culture, because where did that come from? Because if we think of the great generation, Second World War, Depression, they all came through that, and some did have, what is PSTD, post-traumatic something syndrome, but they worked it through. Some did, some didn't. They worked it, in other words, it wasn't an object to where they would blame America, or they would blame the army, or and my dad served, and like a lot of veterans that I would encounter from the Second World War, and he's in heaven now, but they didn't want to talk about it, not because it was so terrible or they were traumatized by it, but they just really didn't think it was all that, you know what I mean? It's like, the line that I kept hearing was like, well, we only did what we had to do. We only did what we had to do.
Now, the Vietnam War, that was a different story.
That's okay.
For them, it was like painful to even consider.
Yeah, right. Because there was a point where I didn't want to be the last to die for a war that didn't mean anything.
Didn't affect me.
You know, it didn't mean anything.
That's interesting perspective that you use war in this regard, because it's to take eternity more seriously than time. It's to be serious about souls and to be serious about the work that's before us, and not kicking people to the curb, but being patient. God is patient. And recognize that's what this moment is. There's a reason that we're here and things are where they are. And sometimes we get frustrated that things aren't where we want them to be, but things are where they ought to be. It is the perspective that God is over it all. And His plan is perfect and is being carried out. I'm thinking of Habakkuk 2:2 that we wait for it. We must wait for this, what's been declared, this vision that's been poured out, that's been shared. We wait patiently for it, and God, there's no delay. There's no delay in it. It's just we wait in it, and to knock on the door and to share and to be consistent with that, to share the gospel, to be consistent in sharing the gospel is to be patient, and it's not natural.
No,
it is not natural to be patient. It's natural to be impatient, but to be patient, no matter what the response, you're going to stay consistent in who you are, and I appreciate that, because that I find myself growing impatient, and I don't want to be. I want to be patient. I want to be patient because of what's at stake. There's a war going on, and to recognize that every soul won brings out our Father, our Savior, glory, and that's what I want.
Yeah, that's
servant of the Lord must not strive. It's sukah, as we would say. And what is that? It's the long suffering, the macrothumia, just dealing and like what you cancel me either, you can't get rid of me because
Well, isn't that the point that it's about an eternal purpose, not an individual one. We don't measure our success on any physical realm. There's a little story that I think that illustrates. A young man went to study in a renowned Jewish school that emphasized character refinement. After a few days, the new student began to imitate what he saw many of the veteran students doing day after day. He sat in his chair, closed his eyes tight, and began to repeat, "I am nothing, I am nothing, I am nothing." Upon hearing the young man chanting that phrase, an elder classman scolded him by saying, "Who do you think you are? You have to be here at least a year until you can reach the level of being nothing." The idea is that, if we are not attaining to anything in the eternal realm, we are tapped into something so much bigger and beyond ourselves. So we never want to measure any kind of success on any kind of natural level. It's all eternal.
Takes all the pressure off.
so cancel culture. Just back on that.
How are you?
Talking about the Ten Commandments and the mirroring the first five and the second five. So we talked about that, I think, the last time, but or just briefly touched on it. But this idea that the first five commandments and the second 5 commandments mirror one another. And if that's not often taught, but if you look at them and do the study, you kind of see are repeated, or one is something's given and the opposite is given and it's given and the opposite is given again, and it's as for emphasis. And this is unique kind of to the Hebrew. And or if you read through the Psalms and Proverbs, you start to get the rhythm of it, and it's a way of building line upon line, here a little, there a little. And the 10 Commandments are a representation of that. So the first commandment is, and God said, the Lord God who brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of slavery, you shall have no other gods before me. And the sixth commandment is, you shall not murder. Now, murder, basically, if you look at what is murder when I kill somebody, it's basically saying that you and I exist in this world, and what you're doing or who you are bothers me so much that I have to get rid of you. That we cannot coexist. I have to get rid of you. And the first commandment is God saying, don't get rid of me. That's basically all he's saying. He's saying, I'm the one who saved you out of Egypt. Have no other gods before me. Don't replace me. Don't replace me. And murder is basically, thou shalt not murder is saying, don't replace each other. Don't get rid of your enemy. Don't so this is that idea. Why would we not, and the whole context of commandments is the first one. It's the preamp. It's like, I'm the one who brought you out of Egypt. My authority is that I loved you enough to save you out of your bondage. So now I'm giving you these commandments. And the only reason I'm telling you to honor them is because I'm telling you to honor them. It's because it's me who's telling you to honor them. Not because they're moral. And then, of course, humanity turned them into a moral framework. But that's not the context that they were given. He's saying, do these things because the one who saved you is telling you to do these things. That's the only reason. Not because they're the right things to do, but because I'm telling you to do them. It's the authority of the one who loves you. And so, murder, cancel culture is basically a culture that murders. It's saying, this disqualifies you, we are getting rid of. You can no longer do these things, you can no longer have a public place, you can no longer exist in our culture. And the reason, we don't, if we love God and will not replace Him, then we also will love people and not replace them. And see the hope that He's the God who brought me out of Egypt. He's the God who can bring them out of their Egypt. They don't have to be what they've done. They can be trophies of grace.
I see that too, the weighing of that, the culture, task, responsibility, all these things being weighed heavily in people not weighing in value as much. And that happens often. And I know it happens in my life, and sometimes you get so busy that people become more distant. And you don't want to say unimportant, but we've chosen tasks and other responsibilities over people, and we do that over and over again instead of the other way around. But we should always choose people over task, responsibility, and it should have a great value. But to do that, it means that you have to slow down to do that. And we're so multitask to do things, and it means you have to slow down and be available. And that's not natural. We're task oriented and want to accomplish tasks, and and we bring up topics in the church as well as program versus relationship and things like that. And now those things are real. That's what the culture has us so intertwined in everything, and there's so much to do and so many things to be a part of that we're diminishing. And I'm speaking in my own life. I see a diminishing of time for those who you love and care about, and I don't want that either.
No, you don't.
But it's present, and I think that scriptures help to remind us of where our priorities ought to be set, and all these things that take root in our heart and minds that start to manifest themselves outwardly, and the commandments are reminders of how we should be living, and in agreement with our Father. So I think it's important to reflect on where we've been, where we're going, but also just to slow down and just see, am I going in the right direction? I never thought of Habakkuk 2 in that way, but every now and again we do need to make sure that we're looking clearly at where we're going. Write the vision, make it plain. I need to reevaluate. Am I heading in the right direction? Straight is the gate, narrow is the way that leads to life, and few are they that find it. We want to be on that narrow path, but we do get off. I mean, sometimes we don't even realize we're off, and I don't know why. For me, I'm internalizing because I find that I get off course and don't realize I'm on course until there's a time of slowing down and listening and praying, and then I start to understand there's a correction that needs to be made. And it's usually in the value system and priorities and seeking first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. And when you see all these other things that we task ourselves because we are concerned about these things we worry about, we have anxieties about. But the reality is those are the things that we shouldn't be caring for. We don't worry about those things because we have someone who cares for us. And therefore we can be available. We can slow down. And I think for me it is the notion that you can't slow down. In order for you, it's like the hamster on the wheel trying to get to the same place, trying to get there faster, but you're still on this wheel. And no matter how many tasks you have, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change those conditions. You'll still be reliant, self-reliant, and it's to break away from that, to step off the wheel and to become more dependent on the Lord.
But you can't even do that until you slow down. You're not going to get off the highly spinning wheel. You know, it's like that's too dangerous, or that's too costly. Or something else that you were saying, which is so good, is that the idea here in the West is that if you're not doing something, then you're not doing anything. You know, that like the value of like us waiting on the Lord needs to be that value. It needs to be that high value. It's not that I'm absent of doing things, it's just that I'm focused in doing one thing. And as David said, you know, I set the Lord before my face. But we live in a culture that, you know, is like 5 generations out. We kicked God out of the schools, we kicked Him out of our courts, we kicked Him out of our society. So we have a godless society that, like what Pastor Allen is saying, you know, it's easy to culture you, you know, to cancel you out.
Yeah.
You're just not.
And the reasoning is safety. Like, it's like protection, safety, which is, you know, the whole idea that one kid fell into a pool and now everybody's got to put fences around the pools. Like that idea, that exaggeration that our culture has moved in the direction of from having missing kids on our milk cartons, which is telling us your kids, the world is a dangerous place. You need to be safe. Like, it's in the name of safety. Like, I think childhood in America changed, over the course of a generation, the same generation you're talking about. Childhood changed because this idea we need to keep our kids safe, which was exaggerated. The milk carton thing was exaggerated. There weren't that many kids that were going missing.
Right.
To make it seem like this was necessary, but at the same time, like, it was enough to push people towards this idea of safety. So if safety for the group is in trouble because of this individual, then we're going to cut out this individual. And that sounds good on paper, but it isn't God's heart. And that's the
It's also
difference.
not the First Amendment.
Yeah.
It flies right in the face of freedom of speech. And isn't that really the issue?
So-
Galatians chapter 5 and verse 1, for it is for freedom that we have found Christ. That Christ is the source of our freedom.
Yeah.
And it's manifested through the Holy Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, there's freedom. And that's not underneath the heavy hand of government when COVID hits and we have to shut everything down in order to control the masses. We trust it. We trust it to do what it's going to do. The same thing, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. These are documents that have eternal. We live in that reality and not allow the other one.
But that's the operation of the other kingdom too.
Yeah.
And it's pervasive.
Yeah.
It's like what you were saying in terms of, you ever meet someone and, before you know much about them, they're telling you so much of what they're doing. Well, I'm the assistant CEO, and I have 5 children. Can I get past that layer? It was kind of interesting. I had an encounter with a total stranger, and I was waiting for some rolls. I go to this place. They got some unbaked rolls that are definitely delicious. Anyway, so he comes in. It's a steakhouse. He comes in, and he looks at me, and I'm looking at him coming in. And he's relatively well dressed, and he was thankful that he was able to come to this establishment because he just left his job, and he told me he's the CEO, and this is the way to do it. And I said, it's easy for people to gripe. And he said, yeah, but it's a waste of time. And we started to get on something very simple. And he stopped, and we had a conversation long before he ever got to his booth, And I thought about that. And I thought, there are people, regardless of their status, that can separate them from the griping, and it doesn't. Do all of my toys that I accumulate, separate me from that? No, it's a commonality. It's something that's in the world because we're human beings. And the fact that we could connect on that level in a matter of seconds was very telling, both on my end in as much as that, so when we go out to evangelize and share Christ, there is that potential connection to happen. I don't need to say, well, I am this, or I've done that, and that's why you should listen to me. No, it's like, if you're a human being and I'm a human being, then what I'm dynamic as well as supernatural because God's in it, of course, and we understand that. But it is about not canceling people, not looking at them as commodities rather than people, souls.